Welcome to Behavioral Science for Brands, a podcast where we connect academics and marketing. Every other week, we sit down and we look at some of the country's best brands and campaigns and the behavioral science that powers them. I'm Michael Aaron Flicker.
And I'm Richard Shotton.
And today, Richard, we're doing a fun topic. Ice cream, cookies, cakes, indulgent foods, and the behavioral science that might be behind why we choose what we choose. Let's get into it. So, Richard, when you think about the ways that behavioral science can help all types of industries, indulgent foods, cookies, snacks, maybe the things that you give yourself a little extra permission to eat, it's just such a great topic for us in the behavioral science space, because we got to think about how you think about the decisions you make, how you form the beliefs that you have. And for me, it's always been a passion of mine to not just promote people to try to engage in consuming indulgent food, but to do it responsibly and healthy. So to have a little bit of something that might be sweet and delicious, but not too much of it. And that's an interesting space to play and to think about. So we're talking specifically about foods and drinks that bring pleasure, comfort, a break from the ordinary. Global size of this category is $1 trillion. That's all dessert, snacks, confectionery, beverage. And if you look just at the confectionery market, it's $200 billion a year globally. So this is, as we say, big business.
Yeah.
There's lots going on in this space. And, one of the things that I've always thought about for indulgent brands, you have to do more than just the practical side of the marketing. There's emotional connections that have to be made. There's a reward center in the brain that often gets hit on when you're talking about indulgent marketing. And you're really thinking about how it has to live in a world of responsible, healthy advertising. We want people to be making healthy choices as well. So it's a complex category to market and build brands in. And so that's kind of the kickoff point to how we set up this episode. And we want to start with the first bias that we were thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned earlier a sense of permission, and there's certainly some psychological evidence that supports that. The principle from behavioral science is called moral licensing, and it's essentially the idea that if we have behaved virtuously, we tend to overcompensate later. So the study in question is a 2011 study by Chu, and it was run on a group of smokers. So he brings this group into his lab, and he gives them all a series of sugar pills. So they're to take one of these pills every day and then come back to his lab 2 weeks later. Now, some of the group are told they are sugar pills. Others are told they are multivitamins.
Got it. So sugar pills are placebos. They do nothing.
Exactly.
Got it.
Come back 2 weeks later and he gives them a really long survey about their behaviours over the last 2 weeks. And he finds that the group who were given the multivitamins, or at least the group who thought they had multivitamins, because everyone gets the same sugar pill, they have exercised less, they've smoked more, they're more likely to have binge drinks. All of these negative behaviours have increased. And his argument is, if we think we've done something virtuous, we tend to overcompensate in other areas of our life.
We give ourselves a little slack.
Yes, moral license, as he says. Absolutely, a bit of slack. Now, the interesting thing is he doesn't just rely on people's claims. Now, I mentioned that the survey was very, very long, and he'd made it ridiculously long for a good reason. What he wanted to see was how quickly those smokers lit up. And he found that people who had undergone the supposed vitamin pill treatment, they were more likely to smoke, and they started smoking earlier than the group who thought they'd been on the placebos.
He's literally watching for when they light a cigarette during the taking of the questionnaire.
Exactly.
Got it.
So he's matching the health behaviours they claim to have undertaken, or the unhealthy behaviours they claim to have undertaken, but also he monitors what they actually do during the survey filling. So he calls this moral licensing. And in his case, it's if a group of people think they have behaved virtuously in one area, what they tend to do is overcompensate elsewhere. So if you're an indulgent brand, what you might want to think is, well, a good time to reach people would be just after they've behaved virtuously. If someone has just gone to the gym, that's a good moment to sell them your indulgent ice cream or your lovely bag of crisps.
Yeah, it's really interesting because you can see that media planning happens through a lot of different lenses, demographically, geographically, but adding this, would you call it a psychographic layer or an activity layer of, can we base it based on what we know they've just done, and they're more susceptible psychologically. Pretty powerful way to reach them.
Yeah, and as ever, one of the themes from these behavioural science experiments is different brands can apply them in different ways. So yes, if you're an indulgence brand, you can take this principle and reach people after moments of virtue. But if you're a charity brand or a vegetable brand, or whatever it is, you could apply this, but in reverse. You could think, well, where are the moments people have indulged themselves? Just afterwards is a good time to try and persuade them to behave more charitably or do something.
The idea.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if it seems a little wishy-washy, you only need to go as far as your Sunday paper, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times. Open it up, and they have a whole section dedicated to how to spend all the wealth you just made, right? They have areas that they're saying, congratulations, you've done well in the stock market, you're successful, and here's all the ways you can spend your money. They're reaching them right after the moment that they're being successful in making money.
Yeah, so you've got would be your media placement argument. The other way that people can apply it is in their copy, drawing a link between virtuous behaviour during the day and now is the moment to reward yourself. So in Britain, there is a cider called Strongbow, and their ads were all about earn it. So they emphasise the great lengths people have been to during the day, that they'd worked hard, they'd achieved things, and now the reward for that was the cider. So creating your product or position your product as a response to efforts through the day would be an example of tapping into moral licensing.
Miller Time in America is a beer that says, you've earned it, you deserve it, now it's time for Miller Time. And now you've worked hard and now you deserve a break.
Yeah, I think though Miller Time, Strongbow seem like, exactly the same principle being applied.
Absolutely, absolutely. Other indulgent brands that lean on this. Did we do an episode on Kit Kat?
We did, yeah.
And Kit Kat has, give me a break.
Yeah.
You've working hard in the work day. You deserve a break. Yeah. This is your indulgent brand to take a break with.
Absolutely. The other one that we've done an episode on would be L'Oreal.
Yeah.
Because you're worth it. Interestingly, develops the idea that Strongbow and Miller Time have done, but rather than talk about the day's activity, it's more about, because you're a fantastic person, you deserve this treat for your makeup or for your hair products. But it's essentially the same point, setting up your product as a deserved reward for either the person you are or the efforts that you've put in.
Yeah. So that really gives us a good idea, both creatively and in media, how to use this idea of moral licensing to position an indulgent product in the right moment and the right way to buyers. So let's go to a break. And when we come back, let's look at another bias that could help indulgent brands in their sales.
Behavioral Science for Brands is brought to you by Method One. Method One is a team of modern marketers that practices the art and science of behavior change to fuel growth for indulgence brands. We do this by building interconnected marketing ecosystems that place the human experience at the center of brand building strategies across owned, earned, and paid media. To learn how to leverage behavioral science in your marketing or advertising, visit us at www.methodone.com.
Welcome back to Behavioral Science for Brands, a podcast where we connect academics and marketing. Today, Richard and I are talking indulgence brands, delicious, delectable, different treats. And we're thinking about ways that you make an emotional connection, give people a reason at the right moment to maybe have a snack or a drink or a indulgence that they might not do all day long. We have a second study that we think will reveal bias of interest to folks.
Yeah, so this is one of my favourite studies. It's a brilliant study, slightly old, like 25 years old now. It's by Daniel Reed, who was at Leeds University at the time. Ran this study in 1998 in Denmark, recruits 200 people, and he offers them a choice of two snacks. So do they want to have an apple or a chocolate bar? Now, for the first half of people, he offers the snacks and they are to take that snack and have it then and there. And when he does that, 30% of people pick the apple, 70% pick the chocolate bar. Next group of participants, same snack selection, chocolate bar and apple, but this time he says, pick which one of the two you want and I will bring it to you in a week's time when you can eat it.
A little delayed gratification.
Exactly. And what happens is the preference for the items flips. You now have 75% of people picking the apple, 25% chocolate bar. So if you're picking now, most people want the chocolate. If you're picking for your future self, most people want the apple. Reed's argument is there are very different reactions if we're picking for our current self or our future self. If we're picking for our current self, we behave in the manner that we want to, that will indulge us. But if we're picking for our future self, we pick in the manner that we think we should do, what we ought to do. What's the...
Rational?
Yeah, also maybe the moral, ethical, sensible thing to do. So you have this same person, but depending on the timescale that they're choosing on, very, very different decisions.
Fascinating. So if we apply this commercially, let's take ice cream as an example. If you want someone to walk into a ice cream parlor and choose the ice cream they're going to eat right now, then a high-fat, high-delicious option may be an easier sell because they know it's going to be delicious. They're going to get the reward right now.
Yes.
Versus if I order delivery to be delivered at the end of the week in a basket with lots of other items, maybe your low-fat ice cream where you know you're making the healthier, more you use the word morally conscious, ethical choice for yourself, which is a healthier option. Maybe that's going to do better in a delivery scenario.
Absolutely. And even you could think you might have the same product, but you would emphasize different aspects dependent on the timescales involved. So if someone's ordering immediately, they're at point of purchase, emphasize taste, indulgence, the creamy, milky taste. If they are ordering for a week's time on their online shop, you could, for the same product, emphasize the calcium that comes with it, the milky goodness. Different aspects or different products could apply the principle.
What I love about both biases today is it really encourages us to think about the state of mind of the buyer and ask, what do we know about the decision-making process at that state of mind? If I'm purchasing for consumption in the moment, my decision-making processes or the things that I most influence my decision-making process is very different than if I'm making a considered purchase in the future, and adapting the marketing for the brand to either case can really unlock a lot for the brand.
Absolutely. A big theme of behavioral science is the idea that we overestimate consistency of personality. We tend as marketers to have a model in which people behave the same way in all situations. But the experimental evidence suggests that's wrong, and that actually people's attitudes and preferences vary markedly from context to context. One of those contexts is whether they're picking for the now or picking for the future.
Yeah. You know, when you think about even the way retail has adapted where they sell indulgent products, you know, a lot of candy bars and snack food is on the aisle at checkout where you can make a quick decision, a quick purchase, and eat it on the way home. Whereas, you know, other items are pushed to other areas of the store where it's a more considered walk, a more considered purchase. I mean, I think one of the most famous examples is the milk and eggs, which are a requirement of almost every trip to the grocery store, is in the far back. So you have to walk by all the other stuff on the way to get the staples that you need. Encourage it. You know, you're going to make that considered purchase. What can we get you to buy as you're moving through the store? Okay, Richard, why don't we bring the episode full circle? Can you give us the big summaries from the episode so far?
We've covered two big things so far. The first one is this idea of moral licensing, that if people have behaved virtuously, they tend to overcompensate and treat themselves. So if you are looking to promote an indulgence item, you might want either to target people after moments of virtue, as they're leaving the gym, or you might want to directly and explicitly reference the hard work that those people have gone to during the day.
Creatively.
And that your product is the reward for that. Think Miller Time, think Earn It by Strongbow. That was the first area we discussed. And then the second principle was that brilliant study from Daniel Reed at Leeds around how we pick very differently depending whether we are picking for our future self or our current self.
Yep.
And sometimes people are skeptical of studies like Reed's or Choose. So it's often useful to talk about an example of it occurring in our own personal life. And if everyone's ever been at a situation where they've gone to a wedding or they have gone to a work do where they've had to make their menu choice a long time beforehand, the insight in Reed's study will become apparent. The amount of times that I've sat down at a dinner table and regretted that I've picked the healthy salad when I've picked that a week before, and now on the day I sit down and the guy next to me or the woman next to me has had a lovely steak.
Yeah.
That's the problem with future versus current picking. So those are the two big principles.
Brilliant. So as we come to a close, Richard, let's share with the audience your favorite indulgence treat, your snack, the thing you'll give yourself as a little escape.
Pickled onion disco, I think would probably be my favourite snack.
And would you describe that for those of us who may not know what that is?
So it looks a bit like a flat Pringle.
Uh-huh.
So it's a crisp. But it is very, very, very strongly flavoured. So crisps are my indulgent weakness.
And that would be a potato chip in America.
Yeah.
And pickled onion.
Pickled onion, yeah.
We will have to try them.
I'll get you a pack before you go.
I don't believe that they have those in America.
No, it's not the most common flavour. I mean, the other one they have is a very vinegary salt and vinegar.
We have like a salt and vinegar chip.
That's a good chip as well.
Very cool.
And yourself, what would your weakness be?
That would be Oreo cookies in milk.
Okay.
You have to dunk them, or you have to separate them and dunk, and that would.
And you have to have them with milk.
You have to have them with milk. That would be a requirement in order to get to that right moment. Thanks, Richard, for talking indulgence brands today. We've referenced a number of older podcasts that we've recorded before. We'll drop them in the show notes for everybody to take a listen and go back and hear because I think they have a lot of connective tissue to the topic we're talking about today. And otherwise, we always invite the audience to reach out. Let us know if they have a topic of behavioral science they have an interest in that we can talk about. And until next time, I'm Michael Aaron Flicker.
And I'm Richard Shotton.